Hello and welcome back again to the Shepherd's Promise. Welcome also to part two of The Way of Things and Things of the Way. Very clever title that I just came up with when I was uploading part one. So there you go. The way of things, the way things are now, the state of the world as we find ourselves, and the things of the way. Those great and truly beneficial things, those good things and healthful things that we have been given by God. So, I went a little bit in part one to kind of the reasons why I'm trying to do what I can to help these people sort of connect, get to meet each other. Um, I'm trying to figure out which thing I should start with. Okay, I'll start with the personal, what's going on in these things. I said in the last video or the video before that I've spent the summer testing the things offered by man, giving uh, due diligence to allowing opportunities for the things of man to prove themselves or otherwise be disproved. Uh, I've gone through a lot of testing various agencies, uh, going through just about just literally every aspect of my life, and I'm not going to be able to really explain what I mean here. Um, I'm kind of fading fast, but what I've been doing is I've been checking to see the things intended for me by God uh, when held up against the things that are offered by man. Um, and the things that are of God have been making themselves known by being um, sort of earmarked as things that are uh, less likely to cause a massive issue if they're taken away. Also, easier to restore and be restored. I'm probably not making a lot of sense right now. I'm getting very, very tired. Um, I'm fading fast. My energy is leaving me very quickly. So, for those of you who don't know, who are new to this channel, hi and welcome. If you haven't watched any of the other videos, I am an incomplete C6, C7 quadriplegic, which means I have various injuries to my spine and spinal column and spinal cord at all levels of the skeletal structure. I am a functional quadriplegic because I have experienced detriment of loss, control, and sensation, at least partially, in all four of my extremities. Quadriplegic. On top of that, I also have some sort of neurodegenerative disorder, motor neuron disease of some type or other. The process of finding out which motor neuron disease I had was started 2 years ago. and the people who are in control of whether or not that process becomes completed or finished by actually coming to a solid diagnosis are not allowing the process to be completed. So that's why I have to say, an as of yet unnamed uh, motor neuron disease. But anyway, over the summer, a couple of the things that had been offered by man um, were my mobility devices that I've been not over the summer, beginning last summer. Um, I received two very beneficial mobility devices. One was my rigid frame wheelchair that I can be seen cruising around on, and the other was the power assist device to help me get this rigid frame wheelchair around this town that I live in with all of its hills. Well, those two things came to me via or as part of my VA healthcare benefits. In that regard, it's much like Medicare insurance, I think. Medicare, Medicaid, I don't know. Whichever one it is that people have to use who need mobility aids and don't have the benefit of documented um, time in service, documented service connected disability. Uh, it's just a different pay source for the mobility aids, um, but it's the same thing, same process. It was determined by occupational health therapy that I needed a better class of wheelchair, and so I got one. Then it was later determined that my needs had progressed to the point where I actually need help getting the wheelchair around my town, and so that was provided. Things have happened over the last little bit um, where the power assist device has been moved on to someone who could use it in much greater need for it. I could still use it. I definitely, it would still be cool to have, but it was needed somewhere else. So it went somewhere else. And now, this wheelchair that is supposed to get me through 5 years before the process to replace it can begin, after a year and a half, is falling apart. Uh, the front casters are so misaligned that uh, even a little bit of speed picked up on any of these slopes going downhill, and the whole thing just vibrates like a car with a bad front end. It's very painful. It's very, uh, it may sound redundant, but it's painful and it is very unpleasant. There's a difference. I'm not going to go into it here. But I've already had to replace the wheel locks on it. Just various things. I mean, even though the wheelchair itself is free, I've added almost, I've easily added almost $1,000 in modifications, replacement parts, and upgrades to the chair to bring it up to a more usable, uh, more viable level of performance for me for what I need. And one of the things that I need in the wheelchair is a stable armrest system because I have the various levels of injury, and one of those levels is between T2 and T9, which means that I sometimes don't have a whole lot of core. function, which is why I'm in the roost tonight, this morning, whatever, and will be for a long time. Uh, I've been very busy over this last summer, especially over the last few days, trying to get things ready, and I'm paying for that effort. However, back to the wheelchair. Uh, the design of the only armrests that are available for this model of wheelchair is such that to be able to use the armrests as I need to help me transfer between the chair and any other surface, particularly chair to floor and floor to chair transfers. Uh, there's so much weight and force being put in at weird angles on the armrests that the mounting brackets they're broken. I can't mount the armrests into the chair anymore, which means that I now have uh, problems with my transfers, and not only that, I can't sit in the wheelchair for too long because I can't hold myself up uh, after I've been in the chair without the armrests for very long. So it's either go through an incredibly long, I mean like months long process of um, finding replacement parts, getting to those replacement parts, having them ordered, running them back through whatever system the manufacturer is going to want to use, since it is a VA ordered thing. They can't just say, okay, here's your part, you can pay for it, and then avoid all the hassle. Well, um, plus, there's something really wonky going on with the supply chain for anything having to do with uh, consumer medical equipment, mobility aids, what have you. I ordered two pairs of wheelchair gloves, a very common brand from a very well established and usually very successful vendor back in August, maybe even July, and I still haven't gotten them because the company hasn't gotten them. Been on back order the whole time. So things are happening to quieter sections of commerce and supply that most people don't watch. That mean that it's probably not going to be very likely that I get replacements for those armrests. Um, so the wheelchair, this high dollar value, custom, well, at least marginally custom fit rigid wheelchair, uh, has now become my practice seat for various instruments. Um, I've had to order an entirely different wheelchair now, one that is a it's budget friendly. It's available on the mass market. All of the places are all of the parts are readily replaceable. They can be found and ordered quickly online through many vendors. Uh, and it has a 2-point fully supported mounting system for the armrests. So I can go back to using the armrest for transfers without destroying the thing. But I have to wait for it to get here. So until it gets here, I'm probably going to be spending a lot of time here in the roost. Um, and I bring up the thing with the wheelchair, one because it has a huge impact on my health, my ability to do pretty much anything. Because obviously, if I'm not in a chair, I'm not moving. I can't do anything. And if I'm not being supported when I'm in the chair, my ability to sustain any kind of upper body, whatever I need for doing things is it's garbage. It's gone. Uh, so I'm at a point now with the preparations. Oh yeah, the reason why I bring up the wheelchair is because I wanted to illustrate that the things, the fancy things, the high dollar value, you know, pieces of medical equipment that were offered to me by the agency of man uh, has proven useful, and was very grateful for them while I had them, but they proved themselves to be not as advertised. Getting very tired now. So the this is to the extent where the exertion, and you see me, I'm just sitting here, of keeping myself supported even in this reclined position to shoot the video uh, is wearing on me pretty heavily. Uh, it is also 3:05 a.m., which means nothing for me, uh, but the Lord has enabled me to be able to get the replacement wheelchair that I can actually return to a similar level of mobility around my apartment with being able to transfer and everything else. Um, Without the armrests on this fancy wheelchair, I have to relearn all of my transfers, all of the balance points are different. My points of contact and my leverage points are all different, and there are some transfers that I just can't do, uh, which is why I'm very very limited as to how much time I can spend. One of the reasons why I'm very limited in the amount of time I can spend in my wheelchair. Um, but the mass marketed, quote unquote, lower quality uh, folding wheelchair that is not as uh, great medically speaking, according to the people, um, and which costs a tenth, right? Not a tenth. That my math is all jacked up and I can't do numbers. Anyway, um, it's the difference of a $200 wheelchair from Amazon and this $4,000 thing that is now just basically a chair with wheels because I can't use it for anything else. Which is weird to say about a wheelchair, but it no longer functions as my legs. It does not do its job as a mobility aid anymore. So now it's actually inhibiting my freedom instead of adding to it. So there's that. Um, there's been a lot of talk after the election, leading up to the election, after the election, that we need to be extremely careful as to what we put our hope in. Uh, Now I've been involved in natural disasters, um, and making efforts to try to help people through them for a long time. I was in Ice Storm 97, 98 in upstate New York. It's actually called Ice Storm 98. But it was the winter of 1997, 1998. If you don't know what it is, you can find it very easily if you just search the term Ice Storm 98, New York. Massive storm, lots of destruction, huge devastation, power out for weeks in the middle of a very, very cold winter. Um, wasn't great. Smaller disasters and catastrophes here and there. Um, I was in Louisiana in Vermilion Parish in a town called Guédon, Louisiana, for the historic flooding of 2016, where literally the lower third of the state of Louisiana was, for all intents and purposes, wiped off the face of the map. Eventually, the waters did subside. Um, but if you know anything about the coastline of Louisiana, you know that map makers hate the coastline of Louisiana because it is constantly changing. Anyway, so there have been like my own personal experiences, military training, things that I wanted to get involved in, emergency services and response as a civilian, and lessons that have been learned by others, and wisdom gained and knowledge gained, uh, especially from things like Helene, uh, where the devastation is so total that it doesn't matter how well someone was prepped. Uh, Even now, with everything that I've done to get ready, it takes a fire, a tornado, a flood, and I live in hilly country. I'm not dumb enough now to say that, well, I live in the hills, I can't flood. Um, but it's enough that we need to seeing repeated limitations of the things that man offers, and knowing the vulnerabilities that the people who depend on what man offers uh, consistently find themselves, no matter what the disaster is, no matter what part of the country it is, what part of the world it is, uh, has done nothing but build in me the understanding that uh, whether you've done your preps or whether you haven't, um, whether you're at a classically underprivileged or underserved demographic or you're not, um, God has absolutely no problem doing what needs to be done in order to get people's attention. Uh, Many preachers have said for a very long time that people will like to blame God and say, "Well, how could a good, loving God let so much suffering happen uh, on the face of the earth? And happen in the lives of people?" And the response is, if terrible things didn't happen to you, what reason would you have to care that there is a good and loving God? And it's a fair point. Uh, so here's important things. I want to not just sit here and bellyache because I'm losing my stamina very quickly. Um, so I'll say the piece that I didn't say. Uh, the two things that I've been focused on is gathering resources that can be shared, not just for myself. Resources that can be shared, ways to help generate and supplement and sustain those resources that can be shared for the benefit of others. The other thing I have been doing is doing what I can to uh, avoid uh, being someone that needs to be rescued, at least initially. Um, I've done what I can to address the limitations and the vulnerabilities and the liabilities of my condition, my situation, my disability, my disease, everything else, so that uh, when the bad stuff comes, when things start failing, um, my prospects won't be so greatly diminished that unless someone intervenes and pulls me out of here to put me who knows where, with none of my resources, my clothes, my things that I need to have access to with regularity, in order just to get by, basically, as a quadriplegic, then I need to do what I can to stay here. Like I said, floods, fires, and tornadoes and stuff are real things. They do happen. And if one of those hits this place, it doesn't matter how well prepared I am. But God will see to me, as He does to those who call upon Him, to those who trust Him, because He is faithful. So, since I know that I'm not going to be able, I am definitely not going to be able. I was already chagrined that I wasn't able to go to North Carolina or Tennessee or any of these other areas, simply because even if I could manage to sustain driving for that kind of distance, once I got on site, I would only be a logistical burden. If a situation happens here that necessitates my rescue, even the act of rescuing me carries with it triple the logistical burden on anybody that's going to take it on, simply because of the reasons why I need a wheelchair, uh, and everything else that comes along with it. So, my best scenario is if uh, I am diligent, and deliberate about um, keeping this space as a viable option, to stay here as long as possible, and to increase what I can bring to the table instead of just passively helping by not needing to be helped. And here's something that I've heard a few people that actually were able to respond to the Hurricane Helene catastrophe and help there. Uh, Something that they have said, and something I've noticed a lot with some of these other disasters that I've been involved in, is communication and power breakdowns are absolutely crippling. They're lethal in this day and age. Um, so I'm in the process of. I've already applied for licensing as a GMRS, which is a certain band of radio communication devices, uh, as an operator for GMRS uh, equipment. I have also started the the process of studying for the ham operator's license and getting that. I have a line on the ham radio equipment that I'm going to be operating as well. I've also got some just regular, widely available two-way handheld radios, and I've got a handheld CB base station that doesn't require a license. So I'm working on all of these things and uh, uh, getting them to the point where, if nothing else, if I can be okay sitting here, then I want my time being okay sitting here to be able to do something like man a radio to receive and relay messages, whether it's ham radio signal or GMRS or CB or whatever it is, and get information to and from people that need it. And if that's the only thing that I can do, and it ends up uh, being the life saving thing that it could have been in so many other cases, had it been in place, then I think that's just the next thing that the Lord would have me to consider being a good steward of. I can't work a chainsaw. I can't. Uh, I can barely work a handsaw. Um, if I try to go on site anywhere, I'm just going to be in the way, probably putting myself in danger, and again needing to be rescued myself. So, in all things, whatever you plan to do, whatever you plan your responses as, just see if what man in his wisdom would say are the things you need to be focused on are really what you should be doing. Um, if they are, great, fine, cool. But give it at least a little bit of extra thought and consideration, because maybe God has you in this time to do something else, to be positioned and equipped in a way that not everybody else is going to think of. Because God provides by either supplying what is needed or by removing the need for that thing that no longer is supplied. So just have an open mind, think critically. No, do not think critically. Think analytically about potential scenarios, about your current standing, your situation, whatever, and pray. Be open to the nudgings of the Holy Spirit and trust that even in the case, the highly likely event, that you're going to get something wrong, that you're not going to be prepared for something, that you're fine. You are in God's hands, as are we all. As stated in the previous video, if you survive it and you stay here for a little bit longer to continue on in the work of reaching others for His name's sake, while there's still time left to do it, praise God. If you don't, then you're with God. And so praise God. Uh, but let's be a thinking people, because God has given us His wisdom, and He's given us a clarified form of creativity and problem solving that comes from that wisdom. Um, we are brought to things like, had I not, um, and God's timing is perfect. Had I not come to realize that this chair was falling apart around me and that I needed to replace it, I probably would not have had to think, okay, what am I going to do if literally, because my chair is a piece of garbage, uh, can't go out of my living space just to go check on neighbors or do whatever else. If I don't have a chair, having the van is absolutely useless. Um, so, what am I going to do if something happens to whatever chair I replace this one with, and I can't get out of the house? What if a tree falls on my van, or some other way I get snowed in or whatever. Anything could happen. Um, and so because of that, that put me on the thought of, well, what am I going to do to actually benefit others? Knowing that I'm good and relatively safe here inside this space, so long as it stands, what am I going to be able to do to put to the service of God's intended um, ways that He may decide to reach people? So every time I look over at this phone, I'm getting shorter and shorter in the screen. I'm not doing well at all. Hopefully, I made some kind of sense. I've got to go. God bless you. And if you have any questions about anything I've said, just please leave a comment. I'll get to them at some point. God bless you.